Hello, Western Civ 104. Welcome to week 6. I want to start off by saying something that you've probably noticed for a while is that I almost wear the same shirts over and over in every announcement because when you're traveling, you don't have that many shirts. Anyways, I hope you're having a good week. Okay, so I don't have a lot to say right now with this class other than, again, the work is coming in, looking great. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Keep it up. We are going, this week, what I feel like it covers a lot of kind of vague, maybe vague is not the word I want to use. Looking at the Germanic tribes of Western Europe and the beginning of Christianity to dominate the region is a little bit tricky. It's always been a little bit tricky for me as a historian and, as a history major, should I say, when I was in college. And I started to realize why this was so tricky to visualize. Anytime you have history that you look at a region where there's not a history of writing and you don't have a big ism or something that unifies that history and like reins it in, when you have like a bunch of tribes and small groups and different linguistic groups and everything's kind of fragmented, it just becomes very difficult for a person to not just conceptualize or memorize, but just even, how do you address so much going on in a given area? And, I think in a sense this also illustrates why Islam and Christianity in particular are going to be so important, significant, should I say, influences on the world. But if I even back that up a little bit to say that Rome, and then by extension Roman Christianity, is going to be a very incredibly unifying factor for groups of people that do have that fragmented type of situation. They're going to make it together. Okay, wait, I'm not articulating myself very well. Essentially, you're going to be able to talk about Western Europe, what we're learning, in a more cohesive way because of empires that also are going to be unifying over just one religion. And even if there's these religious wars and there's crazy debates about it, you're working with one thing. You start trying to learn about the Germanic tribes, and the names are very hard to memorize, and everything gets kind of confusing. Just like when I teach U.S. history, I have a deep interest in Native American history, the history of the people here before European settlement. But it's very difficult because of these very long names that I'm not familiar with, and this fragmented history. And I have been living in Portland, Oregon for 5 years, and there are many tribes that are still around there. There's many reservations up in Washington as well, all the way up to Canada. And I've been friends with them, and we talk about this history. And some of my friends are very active. They even speak native languages. But when I talked about this, they said, yes, it's hard for us to know this history too, because it's mainly been a part of oral traditions and because it's been fragmented and so on and so forth. So that then, though, at least explains kind of, why maybe one would have a hard time kind of grasping some of that earlier history. And, I'm here living in Southeast Asia. I'm finally realizing why I've had a hard time understanding this history, because it's the same kind of situation. And so it's really not until modern times that the history starts becoming more concrete and easier to pin down for somebody just kind of walking in the room, so to speak. So I just thought I would address that. So what's going to be interesting here, though, is that if you can kind of get the general framework and we get the idea of Christianity and influence on the West, and then we're going to cover, in the next week, we're going to go over Islam's influence on Europe, and then I'm also going to return to the topic of even Vikings and some more aspects of pagan religion before Christianity, and even on the periphery, Islamic influence on the region. And there's a reason why we're going to do the Vikings later, and why that will also reveal why we've known so little about pagan Europe in the way that we know about Christianity, for example. And so hopefully all of this will just come together and make sense for you as you watch the lectures and keep following up on the material. I'm not sure if what I just said is actually helpful or even more confusing, but in any case, we're on this journey together. And speaking of journeys, so my visa situation here in Thailand didn't get resolved the way that I was hoping it would get resolved. So I have to leave soon. I actually am leaving to Hong Kong on Saturday. And I'm going to be floating around Asia for a bit. If I want to come back and stay longer in Thailand, I have to get a student visa or a job. And it's a little harder to understand what's always going on out here because unlike Europe, the EU has very clear and concise restrictions and allowances for you, whichever country you come from. So I know I can't go back to Europe, to an EU status country for I think one more month, and then I could come back and stay for 90 days if I want. But then you have to be gone for 90 days. See, that's what I'm doing right now. And so it's interesting, not always necessarily like knowing how to figure the world out here, but you work with it if you're going to do it. I'm probably going to go to Malaysia. And if that's the case, then I'll be there for about 2 months. But this weekend, just keep that in mind. I'm in a transition, but I'm still focusing on the work. Okay? So if you guys have any questions, of course, you always just contact me. And I hope your week is starting off great, and we'll be in touch.